This is a fun story. Did you guys know this Bernie TV? I have to be honest with you. I recently found out about it. It turns out there are 4 episodes in. Now, my surprise about that story is part of the story. The reason is, before the campaign ended, the mainstream media talked nonstop about Trump TV, Trump TV. Oh my God, if Trump loses, he's gonna do Trump TV, Trump TV. Oh my God, what's he gonna do? Now, it turns out one of the candidates, who was one of the top contenders, has actually started his own broadcast. And nary a peep. I can't, hey, mainstream media, where are you? But to be fair, Bernie Sanders also, come on, reach out. I mean, I'm sure he reached out to the corporate media and they largely ignored him. But you might want to let other people know too. Anyway, it doesn't matter because you guys found out and you're watching it in droves. So I'm gonna show you a clip from it. I'm gonna give you the numbers of how well it's doing. And then the fact that the mainstream media has ignored it is going to be even more shocking. Okay. Let me go to the one outlet that did cover it. Now this is ironic, it's Alex Seitz-Wald from NBC News, who's greatly dismissive of other Bernie Sanders movements, and they put that in scare quotes. He's got another scare quote here, but overall I give him credit for actually covering it. He says the Vermont senator has 4.7 million followers on Twitter and 7 million likes on Facebook, more than double that of his closest competition in Congress, including national stars, so-called stars, like Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker. Okay, good, that's absolutely true, and you could use that online to get a big audience, and it turns out he has. So what's on the show? Guests on the Bernie Sanders show have so far included Reverend William Barber, the leader of the Moral Monday movement, anti-fracking filmmaker Josh Fox, former science guy Bill Nye, whose conversation with Sanders about climate change racked up 4.6 million views and 25,000 shares. Now, isn't that amazing? 4.6 million views for an interview with Bill Nye, the science guy. That's a lot of views. And so you saw it all over cable news, right? Nothing from cable news. Okay. And then again, the writer here, Alex Seitz-Wald, my old friend, I'll put that in scare quotes. For Sanders, it's all about controlling his message and getting around the quote unquote corporate media. He puts the corporate media in quotes as if like, oh, that's what he claims. Like, is there really a corporate media as he works for NBC News? Anyway, yes, there's a corporate media, the one almost completely ignoring this entire story. Again, though, ironic credit to Seitz-Wald, credit where credit is due, he's at least covering it. So now let's go to some of the numbers. His Facebook page has generated 164 million video views since the beginning of the year. Holy cow, that's really, really successful. Nonetheless, sound of silence. Now I'm gonna show you a clip from there. He interviewed Jane Mayer. Jane Mayer is a great investigative reporter, has done some great work in the past in magazine form and then in terms of books that she's written. She wrote a great one about money in politics and the Koch brothers. But here they're gonna talk about voter fraud. She talks about something, again, that you almost never hear about in cable news. Let's watch.
Voter suppression and the so-called myth of voter fraud. Now, one of the areas that I am deeply concerned about is the attacks on democracy. So it's not just billionaires able to buy elections. It is a very deliberate effort on the part of many Republicans to try to suppress the vote, making it harder for poor people or older people or young people or people of color to participate, and they do that under the guise of voter fraud.
Well, again, this is the kind of fake scholarship that's come out of the think tanks funded by these partisan sources. And some of the idea of voter fraud has been promoted by the Bradley Foundation, for instance, which is a nonprofit that's funded by a lot of the same right-wing money, and it confuses people. People get worried and think that their votes are, going to be stolen or the elections be stolen, and it's just
voter fraud is a serious issue if it was real, and the significance of this is that Republicans will win elections if poor people, if older people, if working class people, if people of color are kept away from the voting booths. And that's exactly what the intention of this whole effort is about, is it not?
Well, I mean, they wouldn't say so, but it certainly seems to be the effect of it.
So, I worked in cable news. I know what they'll say about why they won't cover that. Well, I mean, that's pretty dry there. You have a senator talking to a reporter. Are people really going to watch that for 20 some odd minutes? Well, apparently they are, because let me give you the numbers. In the last week, 1.8 million people were talking about Sanders' Facebook page. According to the platform's metric, more than the New York Times, MTV, Vice, and some network news outlets. Seems like a lot of people are talking about it anyway. And then my favorite fact, an even 40-second call, cell phone video, I should say, of Sanders talking next to a ficus plant can rack up 14 million views. When's the last time anyone on cable news got 14 million views? The leading host on cable news is Bill O'Reilly. On a great night, he gets a little over 3 million views. Sanders is basically more than quadrupling that on a 40-second video, okay, on his cell phone. Yet, sound of silence. Now, the real reason the corporate media doesn't cover that is because they just told you that the Bradley Foundation, which is supposed to be a think tank, is actually a front for conservative propaganda and propaganda on voter fraud. And that voter fraud is mythical, it's not true, it's not backed up by the data, but the Republican billionaires fund the think tanks, which push that agenda out. The Republican politicians take it and put it out, and then the corporate media tells you 50-50. Republicans say there's voter fraud, Democrats say there isn't voter fraud. They don't never talk to you about where that propaganda came from in the first place. That's exactly why things like Bernie TV are needed. Look, Bernie's done this many times in the past, so if you're surprised by it, it's not that unusual. He just has a much better platform now. Back in Vermont, he used to do a public access show. I know how that feels. And he did that because he's like, look, I'm here to spread the message in any way that I can. Then when he was a congressman, he used to do a weekly radio show. Then later he would appear on Tom Hartman's show every week because the guy is dying to get his message out in any way that he can. But now because of the internet, he can get it out to millions upon millions of people, no matter how much the corporate media doesn't cover it. Now, finally, there was a discussion in the article about, well, should progressives be concerned about this? If you do a progressive show, will it be competitive? No, look, I get why they think that way, because in the old world, everything is competitive, right? And they asked actually Bill Press, who's now part of the TYT network. And he, of course, had the right answer. No, it's not competition, because unlike the right wing and the corporate media, we actually believe in our message. We actually want that message to go out to as many people as possible. So if they hear that message through the Young Turks, awesome. If they hear it through Bernie Sanders, awesome. That is not competition. That is a terrific development. So if it took Bernie Sanders to just sit down in front of a camera and start doing these interviews, then fantastic. I find it amazing, though, that the people who are obsessed with Trump TV wouldn't stop talking about it, even though it never came to fruition. Now that there is actually a politician doing it and doing it at record-breaking numbers, haven't said a word about it. Interesting. The real resistance is fighting against Trump and the establishment. Help us get investigative reporters that are going to investigate both of them. TYTnetwork.com/go.